Buongiorno e grazie. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Secretary General Fabrizio Hoshi, and thank you all distinguished colleagues for this opportunity to join the discussion about the near future of artificial intelligence. The way we are approaching AI today will define the world we live in tomorrow. The choices we are facing today are related to the fundamental ethical issues about the impact of AI on the society. AI will produce social and economic changes far deeper than any other technological revolution in human history. It is transforming our world. Moreover, the growth in computing power, availability of the data, and the progress in algorithms have turned AI into one of the most strategic technologies of the 21st century. Though AI will bring major benefit to our society and economy, concerns also arise. If our aim is to introduce the AI across the world, we need the people to not only trust AI, but also benefit from its use in their personal and professional lives. The Italian government, therefore, truly embrace the European approach that places people at the center of the development of AI. It's a human-centric vision and encourages the use of this powerful technology to help solve the biggest challenge of the world. European strategies based on the three pillars: boost the economic and industrial capacity and the AI uptake across the economy. It means economy. Prepare for such economic changes. It means leaving no one behind. Ensure an appropriate and ethical legal framework based on the key principles ethic by design, according to which ethical principles are embedded in AI products and services. Italy has been at the forefront in recognizing the importance of protecting and defending human rights on the internet with the Bill of Rights in 2015 and taking part in the IGF initiative from the beginning in 2006. The climate of a 10-year-long process of debate that included a commission of multi-stakeholder experts and a public consultation. Italy is going to set out a strategy on AI, emphasizing the need of collaboration among multi-stakeholders in order to strengthen AI production for Italian industries and the AI adoption in the digital economy, exploiting the potential of the
Mr.
data
Fantinati,
economy. Yeah.
If I could ask you to round up soon, please.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just to conclude, oil crisis produce a huge shift, a sort of way of new issues, new threats, even as they uncover new opportunities for growth and development. Whatever we draw out or surf this wave is just up to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fantinati, and especially for your patience and understanding as we have a number of speakers to get through. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Rebecca Finlay, who is the Vice President of Engagement and Public Policy at the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, CFR. Ms. Finlay, please. And again, if I could ask you to try and stick to 2 minutes of time, as Mr. Fantinati so graciously did as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's an honor to join this impressive group of leaders today, and we are very proud to be a new constituent in the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation. Deployed responsibly, AI-enabled technologies will enhance the health and well-being of all people worldwide. However, as the roadmap states, we must ensure that the deployment of AI is trustworthy, human rights-based, safe and sustainable, and promotes peace. CFR is a Canadian-based global research organization that convenes extraordinary minds to address important questions facing science and humanity. We were founded on the belief that only by bringing together diverse perspectives from across disciplines, institutions, sectors, and borders is the world able to answer complex scientific questions and solve profound global problems. Today, we are probably most well known for our early investment in artificial intelligence research, which was acknowledged last year when 3 CFR fellows, Geoffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, and Jan LeCun, were awarded the Turing Prize. CFR leads the Government of Canada's Pan-Canadian AI strategy, the world's first national AI strategy and looks forward to supporting the global partnership on AI. Deploying what we know about what makes societies successful will be foundational to sustaining today's global efforts in AI to respond to COVID-19 and other global challenges. This is the opportunity for this roadmap and the multi-stakeholder effort that supports it. Together, we can address some of the most important questions before us. In partnership with Canada, the UK, and France, we have held international working groups on topics such as Indigenous protocol and AI, democracy and AI-powered information ecosystems, sustainability, and the regulation of AI-driven defense and security technologies. In late March, we convened experts to come together specifically on AI and COVID-19 and followed this up with an extra report on the social and technical issues associated with novel technologies in a pandemic. But our work is just beginning. Multi-stakeholder consultation and engagement are as critical today as they were when CFAR was founded, and perhaps more so. We must find new ways to work together to harness technology's opportunities while mitigating its threats, particularly in a world facing this pandemic, the climate crisis, and long-standing systemic inequity. I'd like to thank the champions for the Roundtable on AI and the Undersecretary General and his team for their leadership. We look forward to supporting and participating in future multi-stakeholder consultations to move the roadmap forward. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Rebecca. The next speaker is Mr. Iike, the Director of the Research Center for AI Ethics and Safety from the Beijing Academy of AI. Iike, please.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, good. It's an honor to join the venture and the establishment of the great roadmap in here. So I would like to tell a very short story that when I was personally involved in the UNESCO AI ethics ad hoc group for developing the recommendation of AI ethics. But actually, when we were talking about living in harmony, I was thinking this is very non-Western value, and people like it. And then people say that, oh, this is very deeply rooted in African philosophy. I was thinking living in harmony was in China, Japan, and Korea. So you see that when you have the idea, actually, people do share a lot of understanding. So this is why we need to link all the AI ethical principles together to actually to avoid the misunderstanding and to make the bridge for the East-West efforts, I would say. So during the roadmap that when you mentioned that more than 160 proposals worldwide, and then we don't really have a platform to link them together. I think this is something that really essential to link them together. So this is why at Beijing Academy of AI, we were doing a project called Linking AI Principles to support this kind of idea. When talking about AI for SDG, or it can be positively used and also negatively used to promote relevant areas. For example, it's not really everything related to healthcare is really sustainable, but when you are having privacy concerns for contact tracing apps, or in this case, this kind of trying is not really sustainable. So this is why I feel this is also really essential to push the idea for AI for SDG, not only to have the positive side, but also would like to have an eye, as always, to on the negative side. So this is why at Beijing Academy of AI, we propose the idea for AI for SDG think tank to share all the efforts worldwide, make it freely used to everyone, and actually to bridge all the efforts together. In a summary, that I would like to say, as a nonprofit research organization located in Beijing, and supported by the Beijing government and the National Ministry of Science and Technology, we would promote all the ideas at the roadmap, the digital cooperation, as a hub for the efforts in China. And also as an international city, Beijing would like to contribute all what we can do to promote the idea from the digital cooperation roadmap to connect to all of you to contribute to the world to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Yi-Zheng. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Cyrus Hodds, the chair of the AI Initiative at the Future Society. Cyrus, please.
Thank you, and thanks, Fabricio, for the work that you and your team are leading on digital cooperation. As constituents of recommendation 1B on digital public goods and 3C on AI, the AI Initiative of the Future Society would like to underline the ever-increasing necessity for the global cooperation which we are fostering in the digital space. We are convinced that complex issues such as climate change or the current pandemic can get solved better and faster through data sharing mechanisms and the subsequent application of AI. We are grateful for citing in the roadmap the work that we are conducting together with Pulse, McKinsey, and over 100 international partners, the access frameworks, which is an important cornerstone on sharing data globally and using AI and analytics to help get closer to the Sustainable Development Goals. And thanking here to the UAE and Minister Omar Al-Olama in particular, who helped launch this exercise at the World Government Summit in 2019. Finally, we are co-leading with Stanford High in partnership with UNESCO, and thanks here to Her Excellency Audrey Azoulay, in coordination with WHO and Global Pulse, the Kayak project, which stands for Collective and Augmented Intelligence Against COVID-19. This top-down sense-making platform will help decision makers, starting with the agencies dealing with the pandemic, to better coordinate the fight against COVID-19 by building on existing data lakes and using AI, NLP, and computer vision in particular for holistic, efficient response to the health, economic, and social implication of this crisis. We will officially be launching Kayak at the UN High-Level Political Forum in July. And in the spirit of digital cooperation for both these projects, Kayak and GDAF, we are calling on all interested parties to come join us. Thank you, and looking forward to advancing the implementation of the high-level panel's recommendation with the office and with international partners.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. Our last discussant under artificial intelligence will be Ms. Irene Soleiman, who is a policy researcher at OpenAI. Irene, please, over to you.
Thank you, Yuping, and thank you to Fabrizio and the high-level panel for your continual hard work. I also need to thank all the champions and key constituents with whom I worked on Recommendation 3C, as it was not only an honor to work with you, but I really enjoyed and learned from our discussions. As Yuping said, I'm Irene. I'm a policy researcher at OpenAI, and I'll first tell you a little bit about OpenAI. We are an AI research and deployment company based in San Francisco, and our mission is to develop transformative artificial intelligence and ensure it benefits all of humanity. That mission takes 3 streams of work: technical research and development, safety research, and policy work. But all 3 of those really go hand in hand, similarly to the 3 challenges described for AI in the roadmap. Inclusiveness, coordination, and technical expertise must overlap. Underrepresented groups and states must be taken into account both in global governance and in technical development and deployment. We support this as part of our mission to benefit all of humanity, and we also support technically informed AI governance. Global coordination is stronger together, and policy bodies must invest in technical capacity to better adapt to AI's fast-moving advancements. Personally, coming from a technical policy team, I believe that continuously updated technical expertise helps inform adaptable AI policy. And I've seen technical knowledge in the UN put to practice. For example, with the Global Pulse's work and also with the ITU, ever since the AI for Good report's conception, I have looked forward to those releases every single year. As those reports track AI work by entity, I encourage similarly tracking progress in AI towards SDGs. I'm really excited to see this roadmap implemented, and I'm looking forward to the UN's work addressing these challenges. Thank you, Yuping.
Thank you so much, Irene. Back to our USG, Mr. Hoshi, for the next roundtable.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank all those who intervened for their insights and for the commitment to continue forward together on this journey. We will really need your continued sustained effort and focus to translate the aspirations and recommendations of the roadmap into a reality. We come to our next focus area of today's discussion, which is global digital cooperation. And we've seen, I think Professor Tegmark made the point that the development of technology and its application has far outstripped the wisdom and institutions to make sure that it's kept safe and benefits as many people as possible. And perhaps one sign of that pacing discrepancy is a proliferation of governance mechanisms. It's not that there is a void of governance. On the contrary, there are many governance mechanisms. The point is, though, the challenge is, though, that they're often not entirely effective, they're fragmented, they don't necessarily talk to each other, and they're not always inclusive. They tend to represent a narrow group of stakeholders or have a fairly narrow geographic base. So, of course, the aim is not to reinvent the wheel. The aim is to see how we can do better with what we have in terms of governance. And many have already spoken up in terms of strengthening the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, the body that came almost 15 years ago out of the WSIS summit in Tunisia. And it was set up explicitly as a body not so much to exercise internet governance. That was never the point. The point was to talk about internet governance. But I think 15 years on, there is a realization that it needs to be further strengthened, that building on what's already achieved, it has to be given a little more impact in the real world. And that can start with a more focused agenda. It can also mean having a ministerial or a high-level track, bringing in parliamentarians, which was an element we had last year in Berlin. And it can also mean having stronger links with its national and regional and sub-regional offshoots. And it can also mean having policy recommendations as an outcome. So that's one of the areas where the Secretary General's roadmap proposes the strengthening of governance. And then, of course, there is also the proposal that many have already spoken favorably for, of the appointment of a tech envoy to help guide this discussion forward. For the issue of global cooperation, we've had two extraordinary champions, the UAE and Germany, and we're very lucky to introduce this topic today to have the Minister of State for AI, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the first, the UAE is the first country in the world to appoint a minister with responsibility for this area. I'm sure others will follow. And then we also, His Excellency Omar bin Sultan Al Olama. And then we also have the head of Internet Governance and International Digital Dialogue of Germany, Rudolf Griedel. So with that, let me hand over to His Excellency Omar bin Sultan Al Olama for the first intervention. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I'd like to start by thanking His Excellency Antonio Guterres for this much-needed initiative and extend my thanks to you, Fabrizio, for your integral and inclusive approach over the last 3 years. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be participating with friends and colleagues from around the world. If anything, this shows the importance of digital cooperation for all governments. The UAE has been a strong proponent of the Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation, and we are honored that our Minister of Cabinet Affairs in the future served as a panel member. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, we are currently at an inflection point. We've seen what 2025 looks like with our feet planted in 2020. And now we're presented with a question. Do we like the future that we're moving towards, or do we want to modify it? The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the fore the inherent cracks in our system, making apparent the increasing inequalities that our past actions have produced. These actions are neither sustainable nor resilient. It has also presented us with a silver lining, obliging us to future-proof all of our next steps to ensure that what is to come is both agile and sustainable. Much like the Gutenberg press of the 15th century that brought knowledge to 95% of the population that had no access to the wisdom locked within books, creating an entire new wave of jobs, industries, and the like. It has also intensified pre-existing notions and disparities of inequality. And today, while the world was contemplating whether to use one platform or the other and which is better for communication, millions of people were still thinking of how to put food on the table. Digital cooperation is not just about cooperation. Its prerequisite is digital accessibility and inclusiveness. The haves and have-nots of the future will transform to the impacting and the impacted of global society. We are here today writing history, not for us in our respective societies alone, but for the entire 7.8 billion people on this planet and for generations to come. And our imperative today is that we ask ourselves 3 key questions. The first is, how can digital cooperation help us design a better future? We in the UAE are fortunate enough to be working under a visionary leader, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who has worked relentlessly over the past decade to transform the UAE into a country that is in competition with no one but itself, continuously working to disrupt inwards in every step it takes. Today, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, 100% of our government services and education for our young ones were delivered virtually online and were delivered seamlessly. The investments of 20 years ago are being reaped today under conditions no one could have foreseen. My second question is, how can we share our collective best practices to the less fortunate, the countries that are not able to navigate the unrelenting waves of change and transformation? As Steve Jobs has once said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect them looking back. With the benefit of hindsight, the wealth of accumulated experience that we together have gathered over the past, we can lift the less fortunate in ways that were not possible only a handful of years ago. And thus, I encourage you all to join me in thinking, not how, but what can we all do to expedite this human experience? Finally, and most importantly, how can digital cooperation ensure that all corners of the earth come out of this pandemic stronger, better prepared, and more hopeful? We are given the tools, we have the motivation, and time is on our side. Until we overcome this pandemic, we will continue to have the space to ask bigger questions, experiment on bigger fields, and ultimately raise the bar. The UAE is honored and delighted to serve as a co-chair with Germany and the Executive Office of the Secretary General's office, on the recommendations on global digital cooperation, recommendations 5A and 5B. Since November 2019, we have worked with our co-chairs to encourage broader participation, bringing in the public and the private sector voices to consider what action can be taken to work together faster to address the growing need for cooperation in the age of digital interdependence. The panel report lays out 3 potential models for the international community to decide on, which are the Internet Governance Forum, the Distributed Co-Governance Architecture, and the Digital Commons Architecture. These are non-mutually exclusive. We have listened closely to all segments of society and have heard strong support for the UN as a key convener. We have also heard support for multilateral and multi-stakeholder models of cooperation that are inclusive of all countries, with efforts to bring developing countries on board that are keen and agile. There has been great interest as well to enhance the Internet Governance Forum to meet our needs. The growing interest has also been there on decentralized options that use the model that works at the logical and infrastructure layers to solve challenges at the economic and social layer. We are seeing a global call for decentralization and inventive ways to put forward guardrails for all people to benefit from digital technologies. I'd like to mention here that we are proposing in the UAE to put together with every country and with the United Nations a repository for digital systems. If we do create something that is going to help elevate our governments, why not share it with the world to ensure that we do not have haves and have-nots in the future, but that we are all haves and that we are all impacting rather than being impacted. This is just the beginning of our journey to the future. And we join the Secretary General in his call for action. It will be up to all of us to take this forward. On behalf of the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates, we wholeheartedly support the United Nations efforts on bringing the international community together for a better future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and let me thank you for the UAE's initiative in originally ensuring the setting up of the high-level panel on digital cooperation and your steadfast support on this agenda and inspiration to us. And we look forward to continuing that journey together. Thank you so much. And now let me hand the floor to Mr. Rudolf Gredl of Germany.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Under Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, distinguished guests. Also on behalf of the German government, I would like to thank the United Nations for the trust that you set into us for having us together with our dear colleagues from the UAE as the champions, co-champions for this recommendation 5AB, which is in our view one of the very important questions that arise when we think about how can we as a world community work together in tackling the challenges of the digital world that lays ahead of us and that has been so clearly set to us from the COVID-19 disease. We had a large variety of events and written comments from all the stakeholders, from all